I always think the best place to start is with just how long the Troubles lasted. It lasted for 30 years, began in August 1969. It ends with the Good Friday Agreement in 1998. And it takes place for the most part in a part of our country called Northern Ireland. And I say it like that because for some people, Northern Ireland is its own country or its own nation or its own state. But in fact, it's not. It's an administrative region of the UK, and it shares many of our laws. I think the point is this conflict was a lot closer than sometimes it's made out to be. And on one side of the conflict, you have the British security forces. So that's the army, MI5, MI6, GCHQ, and the local police. And they're up against a series of paramilitary groups, most famously the IRA. And the next question really is what were they fighting about? And it's interesting, and I think it's something that's often overlooked, that this began very much as a civil rights campaign. It was people, ordinary people, marching in the street, trying to end discrimination in the region against Catholics. And you had Catholics and Protestants both pushing for this. But very soon, the focus of the conflict changed. It became much more about unification, whether Northern Ireland should remain part of the UK or if it should become part of the Republic of Ireland. And that became the defining issue throughout the Troubles in the years that followed. And I guess the last thing I'd say, if I was trying to summarize the Troubles as someone who knew absolutely nothing about it, is to talk about just the number of people it affected. There were 3,500 people who were killed. There were 50,000 people who were injured. But in some ways, those numbers don't really give you a sense of just how deep this went. The population of Northern Ireland at that time is only about 1.5 million people. And you have very, very few families who are not affected in some way by what happened. But what those numbers also hide is sometimes savage intimacy of these killings, that you would often have situations where an IRA active service unit would target someone who's known to one of those players. And the family of the victim would then often see or know the people who probably killed their loved one in the years and decades that followed. So there's a closeness which is not always immediately apparent when you think of this. And it contributes to an enormous psychological burden for people who live through this conflict.